Well, good morning, all two of you watching us this morning. We're going to go straight over to the smiling figure and face of Pat McArt in Burt. How are you this morning, Pat?
Grand Jude, I'll do my usual meteorological service announcement. You can see why I didn't get a job in the BBC. It's sort of cold here this morning, but it's nice.
It's cold here, but it's not nice. Nothing but
By the way,
bloody rain spitting.
no one put me off, Jude, as I was about to say, Edward. A cat just jumped up on me once. So
It's a sign. It's a sign. What color was it?
and it's a black cat as well, by the way.
Oh, we're doomed. We're doomed. Okay, let's see if we can tell the world some wisdom before we're sent to damnation. You feel that there's a couple of stories across the water looking eastwards, which are of interest. What is Boris up to with regard to Starmer and his various statements?
Jude, I thought it was funny yesterday. I was in the gym with cultivating my physique when I read this thing that Sue Gray has been invited to be Sir Keir's chief of staff. Now, Jude, I knew right away this is going to be really controversial for a whole lot of reasons. Number one, she's the woman who did the report onto the Partygate thing. And I thought, right, here she is, suddenly now being appointed to chief of staff. And I knew right away that Tories were going to say it was a stitch-up and that she was, a cabal of left-leaning socialists were out to take down a prime minister. And within seconds, I could have written it because Sir Jacob Rees-Mogg was on saying this was a stitch-up type thing, that the prime minister, this woman was obviously a Labour supporter all along.
Yeah.
He totally ignored the fact that there's overwhelming evidence against, and it just didn't come from Sue Gray, but like it's good for an old smear. Nadine Dorries, the culture secretary. Dude, what's the antithesis of someone who has got no culture? But I mean, you're the professor here, not me. And like, this is a woman. She said that it was a stitch up and so on. So, Jude, I was sitting listening and going, But what I read into it all, Judah, I presume Sir Keir is now serious about going into power. This woman knows Whitehall inside out. She was, by the way, the permanent secretary, as far as I remember, in the Department of Finance in Northern Ireland. And here's the funny thing, I had to laugh. She left the Department of Finance at one stage and to run a pub somewhere outside Newry or in Newry, I'm not sure.
Explain that to me, Pat. That is, as you say, a very interesting thing. How do you interpret that?
I don't know, Jude. She married this man, and I think they had a pub. He was a country and western singer or something.
Was he from Newry or Armagh or somewhere?
He must have been. But then she went back to London and was appointed to the cabinet office, which is seriously powerful. But at one stage too, Jude, a couple of years back, she was running to be the chief of the civil service in Northern Ireland, but didn't get the job. I think she was blocked by the DUP. I'm not 100% certain of that, but I think,
Those who say, those who allege, now, Mark, I say that it's some other people, and they allege that she might have been a spook, a spy. It's an odd thing that during the time of the Troubles, she should be working in a pub in Newry.
Yeah, the other story is much more simple. That she meet a man, got married, and what do you call it? And they said, but sometimes being a civil servant isn't exactly the most exciting job in the world.
Right enough, I must say. Do you think is Bar move just sort of sideways from this? We were talking about Starmer. I think Starmer has just brought her in really as well, A, he knows it's going to annoy the Tories, and B, I think he believes that it'll add to the strength of his team. It's like bringing Ronaldo to Man United, well-known figure. But what about Boris and Rishi? What do you think he's up to there? Is he up to anything that's going to emerge?
That is an unbelievable one. Somebody said it's like Boris was sort of saying the one thing he claimed he succeeded was this, the Northern Ireland Protocol. And he says it's like a boy who has a one-hit wonder. He wants to hear, hey, go and listen to my tune, and please don't leave. Boris went along, and Jude, what has he made so far? Was it 3 million or 5 million since he left office? Yeah. And wasn't he giving a speech? And I love the way he said, "I know I won't be popular for saying this, but my deal was better. No, it wasn't. His deal was crap. And it was totally dishonest. He made a deal. Him and Dominic Cummings had agreed that they would make this deal with Europe, and at the minute they got the election over, they made the deal with the EU to sort of say they had an oven-ready deal on the protocol. They said that, and the minute it was over, then they reneged on it. And remember, Branton Lewis, which I thought was disgraceful, got up and said, "We are going to break international law," and said it was,
but only technically in a small matter.
Jude, you can only be a wee bit pregnant. Either you what do you call it? You keep it, you make an agreement and you keep it, an international agreement. By the way, the small technical bit would allow the British government to totally renege on the promise in regard to the protocol, so it wasn't technical.
Yeah. It certainly was a serious matter. It's sort of typical of Boris. He doesn't like to think anybody might be smarter than him or better at doing a job. I remember seeing a program years ago, and this is before he became Prime Minister and before Cameron, while Cameron was still in office as Prime Minister. Now, Cameron and Johnson went together was it Oxford? And they were both members of the Bullingdon Club, this toffs club that used to go over these huge drinking sessions and eating, and then they'd trash the restaurant. At that time, Johnson, in this program, they said Johnson despised Cameron and thought Cameron shouldn't be Prime Minister, that he should be Prime Minister because he was obviously a superior intellect, smarter in the way he moved, more savvy. Now, if he thought that about Cameron, what must he think about this Indian diminutive figure that is now running the Tory party? I'd say, people say that Rishi stabbed Boris in the back. I think Rishi just looked after his own skin, as any politician would do. And I would say part of Boris's efforts to stab him right back is to get his own back, and also because he thinks this guy's beneath me. I made him Chancellor. He's just not. He's not a member of the Bullingdon Club.
Yeah, and let's get this clear. I think there's a sort of residual thing in Britain, the old colonies. This guy is of a different color from the old white Anglo-Saxon class that ruled Britain for years. So maybe there's a bit of that as well. Like the fact that Rishi's a very bright guy. And by the way, there's something about Rishi I like. I think he's a serious politician trying to do serious. And I think he was trying to unpick the damage that was done by Boris. Mm-hmm. Boris Johnson was a clown. Like the thing about Boris Johnson, Jude, he was great at campaigning. He was great for the media. He was a great performer. Like, in other words, like he's a guy a great journalist, but don't make him editor. Like the minute he got into Downing Street as Prime Minister, he was a disaster. It was just one mess up after another. And Jude, let's work this way. All these things that everybody was talking about, the sunny uplands of Brexit. Now, I heard Tommy Gorman on our talkback yesterday, and he made a very good point. Like a lot of factors have come against it, not least the COVID and the Russian invasion of Ukraine. All these trade deals that they were going to do, not enough materialized. The value of I think I pointed this out the last day, the value of the sterling versus the dollar since 2016 has declined by 20%. Britain is the only G7 that's losing, it's gone. The EU, by the way, the trade, the EU is actually and a plus growth. Britain's a negative growth. So, they need things to change.
Well, I think they will change. I've just the radio system in my car went a bit mad the other day, and I find myself listening to LBC. I don't know if you've ever listened to LBC. It's a radio station from London.
A guy called O'Brien, and very good.
James O'Brien. I was really, I knew about that guy's existence, and I think I'd seen it on YouTube a couple of times. But I listened to it, the program and other programs on LBC. I was astonished at the frankness with which these people were saying what a disastrous thing it was to do to go with Brexit. I really thought that a lot of people thought that, but I didn't think people would dare speak it out loud. This guy's speaking it out loud. He's got people coming on and agreeing with him.
Yeah.
I honestly think that will incrementally develop, and the British people will see. Look, there's no way out of this. We've got to get into a market along with the EU, and once they get into
Yeah.
a single market with them, the obvious next step is the EU.
Jude, you made a point, and so you just clicked something in my brain. Did you see when Rishi was over on was it Tuesday? Over in I was at Ballyclare, the Coca-Cola factory, or wherever the hell that place is.
Yeah.
And he said Northern Ireland has now got the best of both worlds. It's got the British markets, which is
I know what you're going to say, Pat.
Jude, God, explain to me, if he said this is the best opportunity anywhere in the world, why did the Brits leave it?
I know. Any number of people saw that and were embarrassed for him. But I suppose he was trying to sell the deal. He didn't say anything. It wasn't. Well, I think he probably over-egged it a bit, like it was like the most exciting economic unit in the world.
But
he didn't tell a lie, really. But what he left out was the implications of what he was saying, that they should never have stirred. Yeah. God help them. No, we'll leave them stewing in their own juice for a while. I want to, instead of looking east from it now, Pat, I'd like to discuss looking upwards. Now, I mentioned this the last day. There's a crew was to go, a 4-man crew was to go International Space Station using Elon Musk's SpaceX rocket. They had to postpone it because of weather. There was a leak or some kind of thing. But they did get off eventually. And then when they got as far as the Space Center, the big International Space Center, I suppose you call it, they had to wait at a distance of 20 meters from the space station because there was something to do with the hooks for actually grappling with and then eventually joining up with the space station. And I just was thinking about that, and I was thinking, my God, and then they sent the reason the little hooks wouldn't hook up was that they didn't have the proper software. They needed some new software. So Houston or wherever sent them up the software through space, and they docked in Bob's your uncle. The 4 guys that were there can be replaced by these 4 guys. I was just thinking, they're 260 miles above the Earth. And the idea of sending them software, no sweat, here's some software. They're traveling at 17,000 miles an hour. And they come up alongside the space station. And they have put in a little sort of tunnel. And the guys transfer from one to the other. Those are breathtaking achievements. I mean, absolutely. You stop to think about it. We've gone very blasé, I think, because it's been, men walked in the moon in the 60s. But my God, that's astonishing when you think about it. It's also a great international venture, I think. Don't you think you're so?
Absolutely. Here's the thing, Jude. Let me start at the beginning for me. There is no way I could sit in space for 6 months.
I'd ask you, Pat, just watch.
No, but can you imagine what it's like, Jude? Oh. Geez, I'm a claustrophobic. I couldn't do it. Absolutely. So there's a great human achievement. Could you sit on one thing for 6 months?
Never. Another thing is, of course, it might be doing you physical damage as well as psychological damage.
Yeah, exactly. So, but anyway, hey, Judge, hold on, Dr. Collins. You sent me a thing yesterday. It's a wee digression, but remember that thing from chat? The thing you sent me. Right. Look, I don't know how long it took it to write that about me. Now, Jude, it's a lot of bullshit. But I should explain to our 2 viewers.
Yeah.
It's what do you call it? GPT chat.
And it's chat GPT, I think. GPT, I think.
And
it's artificial intelligence. Look it up, but you can Google it, and then you can use it for nothing. Yeah. At the moment.
You put in my name just to see what would come up, and you said write 400 words about Pat McGard. And then how long did that take, by the way?
I tell you now, I'm no kidding. It took, I would say, less than a minute. I would say somewhere between 30 seconds and a minute. Once you put it in, the thing flickers for a moment, and then it starts coming out like a teleprinter, line after line. line of paragraph after paragraph.
Like that is actually frightening, because now it's totally inaccurate, but there's a basis.
It's not totally inaccurate, Pat. Not totally inaccurate. Not totally.
No, not totally. Sorry, that's unfair. But there's the fact that they knew I'd been editor of the Dairy Journal, because he was able to give me all sorts of background and all the rest. Now, there's some factual things. Sorry, I actually said that wrong. The facts are wrong, but the base is right. And there's enough, like, Jude, that could easily fool anybody that doesn't know me.
That's what makes it so powerful. That's what makes it so powerful. It mixes in the truth with make-up stuff. It's just in its nature. It's not that this is an immoral, yoke on the internet.
If technology is now able to put in a name and can make up stuff about you, and by the way, there was a basis in a lot of the stuff. They said, no, it got all the right facts, and just some of them in the wrong order. But I had enough information about me to fool most people.
Well, I did one for myself. I don't know, did I send you that one? But anyway,
yeah, exactly.
It had me going
Nelson Mandela.
It had me going to a grammar school in West Belfast. Untrue. It had me a very important figure in the background during the 1998 Good Friday Agreement negotiations. Not true. And a few other things. But again, as you say,
it said you were a lecturer, it said you were a columnist, and all of which are true.
Yeah, that's right. And you said that some people really didn't like me, which is absolutely true.
But you say quite true.
I mean, these are demented people, of course, but you do hit me.
If that's intelligence that's out there, and let's get back to the SpaceX. Jesus, dude, you're dead right. We've become very blasé that they can go basically nearly 300 miles up, that they can dock within feet of each other, that software can do all this. Jude, from when I started out in this world nearly 70 years ago, and where we are today, Jude, if the next 70 years brings the same level of progress, I presume we could be living on another planet.
Unrecognizable. And by the way, did you know that this International Space Station, it circles the globe, right?
Yeah,
7,000 miles in orbit. But every so often, I think even every few days, the orbit begins to, as they say, degrade. It moves slightly towards the Earth, and if you kept letting it do that, you'd eventually crash the damn thing. So they have to give it a little boost to keep it on course. It's just amazing. How did guys figure out that's what would happen if you sent a spaceship into orbit? How did they work that out in advance? It's just incredible.
Yeah, I would. I was at school with several guys, and they know all this thing about calculus and geometry and all the rest. Like I had trouble with 2 and 2. These guys were brilliant, and you sort of go like there's a level way above the level of intelligence that I have, and I think a lot of these guys are, and I hope I'm not being offensive, but are bordering on autistic. They can focus in a way that most people can't, because you definitely need a sort of brain that's laser focused. And see if you've got a brain that you get distracted by looking out. Oh, there's a cat there. Oh, there's a car going past. You'll never do it.
Cat,
which I do.
Cat lovers need not apply.
It's mad.
Well, you were saying you were claustrophobic, and I would feel the same thing. I couldn't stick that. But they're clamoring, the people who go up there are clamoring to get picked. It's a real competitive thing. Yeah. Do you know there's been 267 or something people have been in space now? The other thing I was thinking is this. Go ahead, Pat.
No, you're chatting. Well, number one, like I could never do a submarine, but I remember a certain person who had spent X number of years in jail was telling me several years back during the Troubles, a BBC camera crew came into Long Kesh, and and the camera crew was to spend sort of 2 nights or 2 days on the place, and one of the guys got serious. Well, at night when they locked up the whole place and they could hear the doors slamming and all the rest, I think it was the cameraman, got seriously claustrophobic. Actually, had to get sedated. Because he couldn't deal with the so Jude, there's a whole lot of things that strikes Jude. See, in the middle of the night, and this is the claustrophobics thing. As long as I can see a wee bit of light out the window, I'm fine. But see if it's totally dark, no.
Really?
Now, can you imagine what it's like
That's interesting.
inside a funnel?
You
Yeah.
must have been frightened by something
So
jumping at you out of the dark, Pat. I think that was it, maybe. Eh?
yeah,
Maybe you were locked in a cupboard as a child and they left you.
that's probably what actually. I
But
probably
listen,
locked myself in it rather than me mother.
Pat,
Yes.
we're talking away about these guys in space. We never asked the question, what are they doing? Apart from staying up for 6 months, which is an amazing feat, apart from the fact that there's an international team, there's a Japanese guy, a Russian guy, a couple of Americans,
Yeah, there's a Russian
a guy from the Middle
yeah.
East. But what are they doing? Are they doing, so to speak, civilian experiments? Are they doing military experiments? What are they doing up there?
Well, they're certainly doing experiments. I know that because I was reading not that long ago, quite a long time ago now. I think that they have chores to do each day, and I think they're measuring things and having a look at things, and they're also doing a lot of experiments on the human body about how the human body reacts. Like Jude, apparently you mentioned it earlier on. The lack of oxygen, the lack of exercise, and so on. They have to sort of monitor what they're doing, and of course, Jude, if we are to get off this planet, what they're going to learn about these guys now in this confined space. But Jude, will we be able to get? That's a ridiculous question. But will we be able to build, as in space? Can we put up places that have air conditioning and so on? I know, and people can live in them. Will we be able to inhabit that? I presume they're trying to do all that sort of stuff now, finding out sort of what sort of atmosphere is there.
Yeah.
Can you do construction and all that sort of stuff?
Well, you see, if you think about it, if you compare it with America, say when they not discovered America, when they invaded America first,
Yeah.
it wasn't that it replaced the old world, but it was a new avenue where people could live, a new place where people could live.
Yeah.
You could argue the same thing.
Yeah.
You could see these big space stations getting bigger and bigger and bigger until you've got, the equivalent of a tower block. And, people might want to live there. There might be all sorts of advantages. So I would just say it's an enhancement of our possibilities. But the thing that worries me is that the press don't seem to ask too many questions about what's going on, because billions of dollars were put into this. And that's why they're very glad that Elon Musk is making the spaceship. He's making plenty of money out of it, of course. Yeah. But it's so much public money going into them, and yet we don't really ask, what are they doing? Are they planning military stuff? Because if you've got some sort of space race in arms, I mean, that's sort of frightening. And you wouldn't, change your whole attitude to people.
Jude, well, I presume that the satellites give you massive advantage. You can track the movements of other people and all the rest of it. And I presume the American military big time involved in this.
Yeah. There's also Elon Musk, by the way. We'll leave this now. I just find space very interesting. Yeah. I discovered that Elon Musk has any number. I mean, we're talking hundreds of small satellites up there, unmanned, of course, comparatively tiny, and they're going to be used for providing Wi-Fi and access to Wi-Fi and so on, no matter where you are in the world. But then, of course, as you say, if they can do that for you, they can probably also take information about you, which would encroach on our liberties. Absolutely. Anyway, I were you a space buff, Pat? Are you as interested in space as I am?
Not really, Jude. No, I was interested in it, but to suggest I would be a space buff, no. I find it fascinating, much like yourself, the ability to send craft up there and the ability to stay up there for 6 months. Something on both counts, something I couldn't do.
Yeah. Did you ever see 2001: A Space Odyssey?
No, everybody
by Stanley Kubrick.
And I haven't seen it. Apparently, it's a classic.
Oh, it was great. I remember seeing the 80s or the 90s. Anyway, let's leave that and come very much down to earth. There's an article in the Irish Examiner today. It's about a guy, a woman driving a car, and she's got a male passenger. This is August the 21st, 2021, I think. And the guard has stopped the car, and the woman was tested, and it was found to be over the limit. So he was going to arrest her. And the passenger with her was a man. and he got very obstreperous. He began to, as the report says, he began to speak loudly and was swearing angrily. He told the Garda that he was a right fucking prick who thought he was a great man altogether.
Yeah.
And the next thing, they're rolling around in the muck, wrestling. You know, the guy launched himself at the Garda. Now, this is all really amusing. For me, I find it amusing. But like, the question was raised on that new show on RTE. I've forgotten her name now. She's got this. Katie.
Katie Hannon. Katie Hannon.
Katie Hannon. It was raised there.
Monday night.
Do the would you feel that the Gardaí really should be cracking down more firmly on these people? Do you feel they need reinforcements for their own safety? Or is it just part of the right-wing thing? And this guy was drunk and, you know, he regretted what he'd said. He got 6 months just the same. But do you think the Gardaí, there should be a tougher law and order system in the South?
There was a thing, I think it was Ballymun there about a week ago, where the Gardaí were attacked, and there's a crowd of youths, you know, yahooing around it. And there was also a Garda car rammed, and somewhere in Dublin, I think possibly Ballymun as well. And there are gangs apparently going down O'Connell Street at night, and without any sort of sanction or deterrence from the Gardaí. I think we're reaching the stage, Jude, that, you know, by the way, I am not a hanging and flogging type, far from it. But I do think that there's some it's crossed the line. You know, I believe that I like the idea that the Gardaí are unarmed. I like the idea that they don't run around with tasers, just getting them out willy-nilly and tasing people and so on. But there does seem to be an element now growing up that seems to have no respect for the Gardaí or for law and order. And Jude, if you get on a train in Dublin and there's 5 or 6 yahoos get on and they are making sectarian or sexualized or to women, you know, sexist remarks, you know, and nobody does anything about it, and everybody sits back scared. You know, I think it's about time maybe that there was something, you know, if these people appear in court, you know, slapping them on the wrists and saying, right, don't do it again, and here's a £50 or €50 fine. I think that day might need to be over, and the whole thing will really look at. But having said that, Jude, I don't see a lot of that around here and so on. But there is an issue, and certainly in inner city Dublin.
It's a very interesting one. I would feel very much like you. I think the idea of guys ramming a police car just because they wanted to do it is outrageous. But I've just finished reading, as I think I told you, Strumpet City by James Plunkett, which is about the lockout.
I read it years ago.
Famous lockout. But a marvelous bloody book. But in it, the police emerge in a pretty negative role. There's only one policeman who's even half decent. Their attitude to the poor is one of aggressiveness, and the poor regard them with hostility. If you think about the troubles here, the RUC were an alienating force. There are those who say we've turned a corner and the PSNI is very good and all the rest. Well, there's a lot of people, and they're not all members of the new IRA, but there's a lot of people who aren't too mad about the PSNI either. So maybe traditionally, the people near the bottom of the rung of the ladder of society tend to be suspicious of the law enforcers. And it does seem to be, you need these people, but they're not even beginning to work at becoming really integrated in some places, becoming really integrated into the society where people respect them as people who keep the law, but they're also your neighbor or your uncle or your brother or whatever. There just seems to be a failure there. Would you agree?
Hey, Jude, you know, I'll use an example. Not too far from here, years ago, there was a Garda sergeant and a Garda who never took anybody up to court, but he was probably the best type of law enforcement officer you could get. You'd see 4 or 5 young fellas gathering, and he'd go along and say, "Hey lads, how's it going? What's the crack? Hey, don't be getting up to anything in the night." And see if anything was going dodgy, he'd go up and say, "Hey, I noticed you were doing that there. If you think I didn't see it, you're kidding," and so on. Now, he was what was it? Not reactive,
Preemptive. Yeah.
preemptive. Yeah, and there was I don't think ever took any young fella to court, and yet there was no problems in that area. Now, that to me is really great policing, and I think I'd like to see this sort of thug was a baton, and the first thing anybody steps out of line up on court and all this sort of stuff. But Jude, it's a balancing act, isn't it? There are some people, no matter how decent the cop is, aren't going to react well. And then there's the other thing. There's the Adolf Hitlers put on a uniform, and suddenly they're Billy the Kid, or whatever you want to call it, Adolf Hitler or whatever, and they're showing their authority.
Yeah, it struck me as you spoke, that I don't know about now, but that in the past when I was younger. It's very much what good teachers were or bad teachers were. The bad teachers were the ones who were feared and hated. The good teachers were the ones who kept discipline, not softies, but who kept discipline in the class, but who did it in a human way and was obviously interested in you as a person. The parallel is so striking, it's amazing. That what works in a classroom in essentially is what should be working at the public level of police. Okay, only a couple of minutes. So very quickly, Pat, you've heard of this Centre for the Union, have you?
Yes, I heard it on Talkback yesterday.
Yeah.
It's been found. Jesus, maybe we should have given more time to this, because this one is really good. Jude, the Unionists seem to, what would you say, absolutely minor characters are given major. Who the hell? I wrote it down. His name, Jude. What's his name?
Ethan.
Doesn't
Ethan
matter.
Thorburn. Ethan Thorburn.
Ethan. He's a 20-year-old. These now we have Jamie Bryson, Mr. 167 votes. Now we've got this guy Ethan Thorburn, and we've got the Loyalist Community Council, which, by the way, has never won an election or anything like that. And these are all people up front and centre for loyalism and unionism. Jude, by the way, let me get something clear, because I mightn't get. See the day clear for unelected dissident Republicans, and give them a platform on the Nolan Show and on The View and on the rest of it. Let me know.
It's astonishing. This, leave it aside the Centre for the Union, the LCC represents or speaks for two organisations that are outlawed. Two paramilitary loyalist organisations, the UVF and the UDA. Yeah, UVF and UDA.
Yeah.
This amazes me. I mean, that was the IRA was there. They'd go nuts. But,
say tomorrow morning I go on and I'm representing the real IRA and the continuity IRA, and I'm speaking on their behalf. I think I'd be arrested 10 minutes later. So
you'd be lucky if you were arrested and weren't shot. But this threat of loyalist violence is real. There's an irony with it as well. The LCC, the loyalist, whatever it is seeking legal advice about this framework document.
Yeah, and they're no legal organization.
Paramilitary organization is seeking to find out.
UVF is illegal.
Wants to know.
I was actually to bring that up. The Centre for the Union is founded by Ethan Thorburn, and its members include Jamie Bryson and Ian Paisley. And by the way, there's a lovely self-aggrandizing thing, and the ones they said that the Windsor Framework Analysis. They've got this Windsor Framework Analysis Subcommittee, which has found that the framework has not gone far enough for unionism. Who the hell are they? By the way, Windsor Framework Analysis Subcommittee.
That's right. They're all these.
Jesus, dude.
Well, it's an effort to. It's like somebody. It's like a woman who's very, very poor, but she gets her hands on a fancy coat and she puts it on and walks around pretending she's a duchess. They really. Actually, and in a way, we should look on the bright side of this, because it means that unionism is hopelessly divided, which has always been its tendency. You have the LCC guys. You have Ian Paisley, Sammy Wilson and company, who are miles away from the likes of Jeffrey Donaldson. You have the Ulster Unionists. You know, you have
And
such a range.
yeah,
Now, people give out about the Republicans that they have this sort of Stalinist cohesion. My God, the Stalinist cohesion is a lot to be said for it compared to what's going on there.
yeah. But you like right here, if you sit down and think about it, see tomorrow morning, if the Westminster and Brussels and Dublin, the SDLP, Sinn Féin, the Alliance Party, possibly the UUP, did I mention the SDLP as well? If they all arraign together and align and say, we're pro the protocol and this new Windsor arrangement, you know, where does that leave loyalism?
Ah, that's right. That's what they should be doing. That we're out of time, Pat.
All the best, Jude.
Okay, goodbye to you. Goodbye to you and you, the two viewers.